SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using SocratesGarrettENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. We're really happy that you're joining us today. We're looking forward to the show to put out some information and hopefully putting out information to you in a level that's more usable, that gets down to the issues and causes rather than just a 2-minute kind of soundbite. You can follow us on WeBelieveDigital.com and on Facebook, We Believe podcasts, and on YouTube. We're available also on Roku TV. We've got sponsors lined up for today's show that we're very grateful to, and we're happy to take your call-ins now at 601-209-9199. Now that number will change a little bit over time, but that's the number for today, 601-209-9199. So once again, welcome. We are glad you're here. And let me say hello to my co-host, Mr. Socrates Garrett. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's good to be in the studio with you today.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. We've got things going on here, not only here in Jackson and Hinds County and across Mississippi, but also throughout the nation. You know, one of the stories that caught my eye early this morning, Mr. Garrett, was not too far away from us and with this COVID in Simpson County, just maybe 30 miles to, it's close enough where it's still considered part of the Jackson Metro, but they had among the highest COVID deaths in all of America, in the top 25%, an article I was looking at this morning. And you've certainly been in Mississippi a whole lot longer than I do. Could you shed any light on that?
Well, I don't know why that would be. But, you know, Mississippi's rural areas suffers from the lack of availability of medical care, both in doctors and facilities. I mean, you can drive in certain counties and they won't have a doctor in the entire county. And many hospitals in the rural area have been closed as well. So we rely mostly on the health clinics. Jackson Hinds Comprehensive Health Clinic has several clinics throughout the state, as well as the family health clinics out of Rankin County. They have several clinics. And of course, there's Carmichael, the clinic that's up there in Canton area. So in Simpson County, I would imagine it's a lack of access to medical care. If you find that the death rates are the highest in the nation from a preventable disease such as COVID, then it's a lack of facilities and availability and information getting out to the folk in Simpson County on the benefit of taking these shots and getting these booster shots. Obviously, we didn't do a good job there. I know the state health director, Thomas Dodge, is resigning, and I'm sure he's burned out. But, you know, that's why we bring in new leaders, because, you know, sometimes our leaders get burned out, and it's better to bring in a fresh person to give it their best try to see if we can get Mississippians to do a better job of getting vaccinated.
That must be a mighty workload associated with that position. I think I had told you before, I had written Dr. Dobbs a letter early on in the pandemic because I saw some of his news conferences on the television, and I thought, my gosh, this guy is really squared away, and he seems to be leaning in and just taking this by the horns and doing everything he can do with it. But then by the time I had moved down here to Jackson 14 months later, I was drawing a different conclusion. And so maybe it is burnout. Maybe it's just too much for one person to do or what have you. But it seemed like the response was tepid. It didn't seem like it was leaning in as much as it was in the very beginning. I can't help but wonder if, that's political influences coming to bear on that.
I'm certain that the politics is involved in everything we do. I want to say that Dr. Dobbs, did a yeoman's job. He did the best he could with the resources that he had in a state where you already have the highest number of obesities and diabetes, and all of the health indicators indicate that Mississippi is last. And so when you're last in that environment, and then this plague comes upon you, then it's going to hit you harder because you had underlying conditions greater so than other folks that were a little bit healthier before the plague came. And Chris, I call it a plague. I believe that the earth is purging itself. And we're going to spend some time talking about that.
Good.
There's so much evil in the world. There's so many things that are going on that doesn't make any sense. And back in the days of Solomon and Gomorrah, there comes a time when God says, we must correct things. And we must set this on a correction path. So I was talking to Carol, and she indicated to me that she thought that earth was purging itself and that this sea was giving up its treasures, and that everything that we see is changing. And so Simpson County and COVID are just the early signs of the times that we're in.
A lot like the Delta, rural areas, zip codes. Not all zip codes. I mean, I've got a brother that lives out near Hollywood, California, and 45 minutes away from Hollywood. I just, my instinct tells me that they don't have the COVID deaths out there that we had here.
No, they wouldn't have. No. They won't have it in Maine, in Stanford. They won't have the same ratios because healthcare is so much more available than it is in a state like Mississippi. And that falls right on the heels of a state that failed to expand Medicare because it was called Obamacare.
Right.
And it failed to expand Medicare because of those racist tendencies. Right. And then you wonder why Mississippi has the highest death rate from COVID of any place else in the nation. Right. It all is there for everybody to see why that situation is. And I'm sure Dr. Dobbs just certainly got burned out.
Sure. Well, switching over a little bit, you talk about with Mississippi being at the bottom of all these rankings, there's another thing that was just recently published with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have gathered up all the numbers. There's a lag behind sometimes with collecting the information, but the data is fully out for deaths by gun deaths in the United States through the year 2020. And lo and behold, would you like to take a guess who the highest gun deaths per capita of anywhere in America?
No, I don't want to guess because I might be right.
Yeah.
I would think Mississippi, but I don't want that to be right.
Well, like in many categories, it is Mississippi, and closely followed by Louisiana. But now, if you live in a state like Hawaii, there's a very low incidence of deaths by gun.
Wow. Mississippi is the highest state in the nation when it comes to death by gun violence.
Deaths, gun deaths, specifically gun deaths.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think you alluded to it, some of it before. There's a political climate. There's a baked-in racism in a white power structure that's unwavering, unyielding. You know, I was pulling together some statistics the other day, and in fact, I think I announced it on the show a few days back, where if you can imagine this, having well over 100 state agencies in Mississippi. So you're going to have well over 100 agency heads. I think the researchable list that I came up with was 123 state agencies. But 94% of those agency heads are European Americans. Mm-hmm. In a state, there's 40% African American.
Wow.
So what do you really, I mean, are you saying that we don't have enough skilled talent of people available in the African American community or in the Hispanic community to be able to fill some of those positions?
Well, I certainly can't make that excuse. You would probably find that 94% of those agency heads are also Republicans. Mm. And so we're in a deep, deep red state, and it tends to band together. And the shameful part of that is that we remain last in everything. Mm-hmm. And so obviously we're not doing something right. Mm-hmm. You know, we have the most fertile soil. Mm-hmm. We have a wonderful climate. Mm-hmm. So God gave us the garden, mm-hmm. but yet we don't bear fruit. We don't produce, and we don't get ourselves off of the bottom. And so it's got to do with that leadership. But guns and gun violence, we really need to understand that while there are many who do not think that African Americans ought to surrender their guns, you don't hear much about that. Mm-hmm. Most of the time you see these gun shows mostly attended by Europeans, mm-hmm. But mostly held in urban cities. Mm-hmm. It's a dichotomy there. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how to think about gun violence in terms of what do we do about guns. If Mississippi is number one with gun violent deaths by gun violence, then obviously, you know, we need to call in experts on this subject matter, mm-hmm. and talk about what's the root cause of this. Mm-hmm. Now, Chris, I've always said that the root cause of violence is poverty.
Agreed.
And no one says that. No. And it's the economy. Mississippi's economy is not shared at all with 40% of its population. Mm. African American firms get less than 2% of contracts for goods and services, mm-hmm. at our state level, and less than 10% in our municipal and county governments that are basically run by African Americans. Mm-hmm. And that participation in the economy leads to 42% of our citizens living below the poverty level. Mm. And there's a correlation between poverty and desperation and violence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And no one's connecting those dots. Mm-hmm. If you want to fix the gun violence in Mississippi, you can't do it by locking up more people than anybody else. You indicated that we already do that.
Yes, more than anywhere in the world.
And that's not working.
No.
And so, and you already indicated that we have more deaths by gun violence than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's something we're missing. Mm-hmm. I submit to you that is the economy. That we won't share in the economy, and as long as you keep a certain group of people oppressed and where they have no hope, then you will find violence. And I think that's what's happening here. So I don't think African Americans ought to surrender their guns.
No.
I think that would be a tragedy because in a state with the history of Mississippi, you need to be able to protect yourself. Because you never know. I mean, the first school shooting occurred here in Mississippi. Pearl, only 5 miles from Jackson. Actually, you just leave Jackson and move right into Pearl. And so we have a history that says that we ought not be unarmed. But yet we cannot continue to use guns to kill one another.
Right.
And so I think it's about the economy, Chris.
Makes perfect sense to me. Well, let's pick back up on that when we come back from a commercial break from our sponsors. Again, our call-in line is 601-209-9199.
SGECOVIDsolutions.com is paving the way forward for a safer city government delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
Welcome back to We Believe Digital. We're glad you're joining us today. Our call-in line is 601-209-9199. We've been discussing the most recent topic was the gun deaths that are occurring here in Mississippi statewide. But here in our capital, Mr. Garrett, we have councilman on this Jackson City Council that we talk about often that is now offering up an ordinance to hold parents accountable for their children's gun crimes. And this would be a progressive type of punishment, it appears, where on a first offense, apparently, the parent is, by this ordinance, the parent would do 24 hours in jail and pay a $500 fine, and then it gets progressively more time in jail and more money as time goes on. And there's going to be a gathering tonight at Greater Bethlehem Temple Church down on Robinson Road. The public is invited to attend, where this is going to be put out to the public to get feedback and so forth. So, that really caught my eye when I saw it. I appreciated there's some level of effort, but right away I have red flags with all that. What about you?
Well, I have also a great deal of trepidation about whether or not that solution will work. I think James Meredith was on one of our shows here in the studio, and he said that he thought what we needed was a think tank. People that sit and try and come up with strategies and solutions to problems that are continuing plaguing society. I don't think that ordinance is well thought out. Now, I understand the emotional side, and I understand that as a leader you're saying we got to do something. But I want you to imagine a situation where your 16-year-old child just murdered your 14-year-old nephew. Now, most of the crime that occurs are occurring inside of family units or inside of communities. Now, the devastation on the parent when that occurs is so much grief going on, so much hurt that is in that scenario. Now, to be picked up at the time of the incident and put in jail with a fine is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. It can't sustain it. And so I don't think Mr. Banks has thought through that one. America is responsible for the brokenness of the family in the African American community. And when the family structure is broken, which it is, fathers are not in the home, mothers don't have control over these children. And so, on the one hand, you can't empower them to say that they are going to be held accountable for the actions of this 16-year-old, which they lost control over that long time ago.
Right.
But yet, if the parent attempts to discipline the child, then the parent is fearful that they will be called off downtown and locked up for child brutality.
Right.
So which one is it, Chris?
Right.
Which one is it? You know, my parents and my grandparents had this old saying, I brought you into this world and I'll take you out. And they meant that. Parents today don't have the ability to say that because they'll get locked up for life. And yet now you have an ordinance that says I'm going to lock you up if this child commits a crime. You just can't have it both ways, Chris. I don't think it'll work.
You know, it makes me think too, my mind goes back to what you said earlier in speaking about poverty. You know, I wish there was, but we don't have anything to go by because of the history of this country, the oppression that has gone on, the oppression that continues to go on, despite some advances. But you certainly get a close-up view of that oppression here inside of Mississippi, a deep red state. But I wish we had something to compare it to because I can't imagine, and again, I'm connecting dots here, and maybe they're not the right ones to be connecting, but I can't imagine that the violence would be what it is if you had a thriving black businesses here in Jackson. People were getting their needs met. People were able to accomplish goals. People were able to take a vacation. And just living in a whole different way that doesn't have the same level of desperation and poverty that we have now. The way I see it in my mind is that the violence wouldn't be what it is now.
No, I think you're connecting the right dots. You wouldn't have nearly the violence. No one wants to talk about the impact of poverty. The federal government recognized that when they created these one-stop shop concepts, these regional concepts where they put all public assistance in one place, where poor people could go and get what they need, whether it was TANF, whether it was food stamps, whether it's WIC, all of these things that are available, put them in one place. Because poor people can't go to several different places to try and get the assistance that they need. And that's what poverty does for you. And so when you recognize that, you have to institute policies that's designed to ward that off And if you do that, you'll find that you will find cures for a lot of other things that are ailing in this community. So, no, I think you're absolutely right. We got to fight poverty with everything that we have. And we're currently not doing that in Mississippi. What we're doing in Mississippi is making certain that a certain segment of our population do not participate in the economy of this great state.
And along those lines, I mean, we'll see what happens with the ordinance that Councilman Banks has generated. We'll see what happens with that. But what we're still waiting for, we still don't have an ordinance in the city of Jackson that mandates that a certain percentage of contracts for goods and services go to black businesses.
Right.
Here in this, we have no ordinance for that. So that would feed directly into what we're talking about here. So I wonder what we could do to motivate people to write that ordinance.
Well, you would think in a state that has the highest population of African Americans and have the highest number of elected officials of any other state, both in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and our municipal governments that are controlled by African Americans, that there will be an economy, that there would be these ordinances that you're talking about that would have been written, that there would be policies that indicate that for Jackson businesses, there's going to be a 10, 15% preferential treatment for Jackson-based businesses. And for African-American-based business, there's going to be a 25% preferential treatment bid. The state of Mississippi, even in its lack of concern and integrity to the issue of economics, still says that you may set aside 10% of contracts for goods and services for African American firms. It says you may.
You may, right? An option.
You have that option.
Right.
It doesn't say you shall, but they said you may.
Yeah.
And even though it's there, I can't find any agency, not any school district, not any county government, not any municipality, not any airport authority, not anything that collects tax dollars that have advertised that they are accessing the may in the way the legislation is written, and setting aside these contracts for goods and services.
Right.
I can't find anyone that has written the ordinance that said that that's even important.
And we talked some time ago about this notion that people bring up about a disparity study, and it was never, apparently it's on the books. I was told by one of the board of supervisors, it's been on the books in Mississippi for years, but they never put the money to go with the legislation. The funding was never included. But I mean, with all due respect, a blind person can see that, we don't need to have a disparity study to see what's going on here.
No, we don't have to have that. What our elected officials and our leadership has to understand, that these dollars belong to the citizens of Jackson. We get confused when we think that you have the ability to deny economic opportunity back to the community from which the taxes came from. You get real lost in that.
Like it's their money.
Like it's their money. And so, we're going to have some accounting, not for who stole what. That's not the issue. That's the crumbs that we're talking about. The things that are being fought over or stolen or who did stuff of that nature is so small in comparison to where is the $300 million budget going annually? Where is it really going? and I submit to you, Chris, that is going in the economy of surrounding cities.
Surrounding cities.
And Jackson just gets poorer and poorer and poorer, and we get more people that are dying from COVID, and we get more gun violence than any place else, and we get poor schools, and everybody sits like, oh, I don't know what's happening to us.
Right.
I don't understand why this is occurring. It's the economy.
Mr. Garrett, let me ask you, how far away is Florence? Florence maybe, what,
No.
30, 40 miles?
No, not that far. Yeah.
You know, because I was driving around the Capitol the other day, and I was noticing that there's no flags flying from this Capitol building. I don't quite understand. I've sent out a message to my senator, David Blunt, ask him for some insights on that. I haven't heard back. But, you know, I noticed a company that's doing work right at the Capitol, landscaping, irrigation, it says on the side of the truck and everything. And I can't recall the name right now, but I remember Googling that company, and lo and behold, that's they're from Florence. And I just thought, geez, does that mean that there's nobody in Jackson that could be doing that work over at the Capitol building? Hello, caller.
Garrett.
Caller, you're on the
Hello?
air.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Fantastic. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we sure can. Do you have a question or comment?
I do have a question and I have a comment. Hold on. So this is Tamika Garrett. Hey, you guys, I'm listening to the show. Great information. Just wanted to call in and tell everybody about We Believe and how they can get information. I'm super excited about what we're doing and why this media enterprise was designed, right? Mississippi has so much more to offer and share than we can even put together. So for all those people that are listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Share this. If you feel a value, right? Share this with other people and get ready. We Believe Digital is taking Mississippi places together. We're going to talk about news, sports, political things, of course, professional business women, right? Yes, we couldn't do that without us. I'm going to let you guys get back to your show, gentlemen, but this is really nice. You guys have a great day. And if those out there are looking for advertisement for their product, business, or service, we do that. We have everything in-house. You can call the number, not the number that you see there. So I'll put it on the screen. You guys can call that number, or you can email info@WeBelieveDigitalPodcast.com. Again, go ahead and email if you have any questions at info@WeBelieveDigitalPodcast.com. It's long, I know, but we'll get it. And then someone should get back with you within 24 hours. You guys have a great day. Be safe. And remember, everything is possible. Bye, Pops. Bye, Mr. Chris.
Well, thank you so much for your call, and we'll say that again. If you do have questions or comments, you want to give feedback to the show, please send us information at info@WeBelieveDigitalPodcast.com. Again, we're happy to have our sponsors today, and we're open. Our studio is open. We have slots available for anyone out there in the community that wants to further your brand. We have goods and services to offer. We have advertising packages available. We would love to sit down and do a consult and come up with something that works for you. And again, you can always call 601-209-9199 to set up any type of advertising options, or the email at the website that I mentioned earlier. Mr. Garrett, we're quickly running out of time. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, Chris, I just think that what we're doing is tremendously important. And We got to keep getting the word out and sharing with the viewers all over the world what's going on, and then hopefully we will come up with some solutions.
Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you, listeners. And we look forward to our next show being on tomorrow and around the noon hour tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a great day and stay safe.
Advertise on WeBelieve.Global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.Global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.